Hello people, taking a break from what I should be doing, which is getting ready for Christmas, to talk to you because I haven't for a little while. I should be going Christmas shopping, but it's pouring down with rain outside, which is why it's dark in here. Funny colours from my Christmas lights just over there. Yeah, so I do apologise for the appalling quality, but it wouldn't be a Pearcie video without having appalling sound quality. So anyway, I'm going to talk to you about some of my albums from the last year, being as how we're drawing near to its close. Yeah, these aren't all albums that were released in 2013, but they're ones I've just acquired. The list isn't exhaustive. There have been others, but I just thought I'd talk to you about half a dozen that have kind of stood out to me. Start off quite predictably with some vinyl. This is Ed Sheeran's album, which I think the title is just Plus. He is a bit of an oddball, really. On the face of it, he's a singer-songwriter who plays a guitar, and yeah, that's not so unusual. But he's also got this kind of R&B rap style, which is underpinning an awful lot of songs. It's very subtle. This whole album, I read an interview with the producer, and he tried as much as he could to get it to sound like sort of natural analog. I wished he'd actually, produced a reel-to-reel tape and, just done a nice 16-track recording with it without all the Pro Tools and everything else that he used, because that tends to sort of draw a veil over it. So the whole album is very understated, and there is kind of this distance between you and him. So it's not an in-your-face album at all by any means. So these sort of rap styles and stuff don't overwhelm, and it's so beautiful. It's really lovely. The sort of, I suppose, the pull-out track, I don't know whether I dare call it a single these days, is the A-Team, but the actual sort of, I suppose, the real nuts and bolts of the album really starts in track 2, which is called Drunk. And we have a very lo-fi drum machine playing in the background, rather tinny. It's good. I'm not saying that's not a criticism for it, because it's just taking this sort of au naturel kind of style to its extreme, really. But with that, in very slightly in the background, you've got these sort of backing vocal kind of hums, which could have come from Fairport Convention's Unhalf Bricking album, and mixed in with that, we've got this kind of fast but sung rap style, these fast but sung rap lyrics, sung, not stung, sorry, yeah, it just makes for just a very it just makes for something just a little bit different, really, and I really like it. By the time that you get to the end of side 2, side 2 is my favourite, it has to be said. We have the secret track at the end, where the whole sort of thing is just stripped down to nothing but those sort of hummy male vocals, which are sort of premiered on Drunk, suddenly come right to the fore, and then you actually are on Unhalf Bricking. You've got riddle style lyrics, which is typical of folk music. He's a very good lyricist, it has to be said. You just have to listen to some of the little catchphrases that come out here. Highly recommended, this album. If you can, get it on vinyl. It doesn't come with one of those vouchers to download the tracks onto digital, though, which is a bit of a shame. But other albums that have been at the same price have come with one of those. I talked about Gary Newman's Splinter the other week, which does, for example. And so, actually, there's the next album, which I'm going to talk about, which is The Fear of Missing Out by the New Number 2. Now, the New Number 2 featured Danny Harrison, who is George Harrison's son. He must be sort of in his early 30s now. He's got this band called the New Number 2. You have to, if you want to Google it or whatever, you have to sort of put it in as all one word, and number is the abbreviation NO. All right. this reminds me a bit of sort of mid-90s stuff like Portishead and groups like that. Very danceable, but very melodic. And there are some really odd things going on here. Some real, yeah, you have got a barrage of synths and things all coming out here, but it's also got some, even some ukulele, which obviously his dad was famous for, really. Yes, he was the Beatles guitarist. Yes, he developed this sort of very kind of sort of waily sound that you can hear on songs like My Sweet Lord and While My Guitar Gently Weeps. But also George Harrison was, he used to entertain his mates around his house by teaching them how to play the ukulele. And yeah, that comes out on some of these songs here. There's some rap on here again. There's also some, yes, there are love lyrics on here, but there are also some political lyrics on here. Go onto his SoundCloud, actually, or onto the new Number 2 SoundCloud, and just hear what they're like, and then buy this album because it is really, really good. And again, the vinyl pressing just brings out all the sort of danceable sort of digital stuff. And again, it's not a hugely in-your-face production either. For me, with most things, less is more. And yeah, this is brilliant. Okay, right, now it wouldn't be a Pearcie video without a reference to ABBA. And in 2013, Agneta Folkeskog came back onto the music scene after quite a long break. I think the last album we have from her was 2004's My Colouring Book. This is called A. And yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. What it manages to do somehow is be modern. It's got the producers of Britney Spears on here, for example, who are Swedish. But also, it manages to respect that she was a member of ABBA. And so, some songs could have come off an ABBA album circa 1976. But it also pays tribute to the fact that before ABBA, she was a major solo star singing weepy, droopy love songs. And you've got all that sort of meshed into one album, okay? I absolutely adore this album. And there are songs on here that are just really touching, and even if, you're 20 or something and you don't really know very much about ABBA apart from Mamma Mia or the Gold compilation, this somehow manages to be relevant today. As I say, I really adore it. The first single, When You Really Love Someone, I don't think I'll ever forgive Chris Evans because he absolutely panned the thing live on air, and it was just totally uncalled for because it's absolutely beautiful. And on the CD, being played on a CD player, please, children, if you get a CD, play it on a decent CD player. You'll suddenly hear that it will take it by the scruff of the neck and it will present it to you in all its full Technicolor glory. Don't just upload it onto a computer. No matter how good my iMac is, and I absolutely adore it and couldn't live without it, it doesn't play music. All right, CD players play music. All right, so do record players, even better. But yeah, it really deserves to be heard on the best equipment that you have to hear it. And in When You Really Love Someone, sort of towards the end, you've got this sort of synth solo which goes da 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 da, and that jumps out of the speakers, and it will grab you by the scruff of the neck, and you will just be sort of pulled into the music. Okay, that's track 2 on here. The other kind of standout thing here is the duet with Gary Barlow, which is called I Should Have Followed You Home. Now, this was where Chris Evans just proved himself a complete hypocrite here, really, because when he presented this gig very recently in aid of children in need, Agneta actually broke her sort of I'm not performing silence. You know, she hasn't been on stage as such since 1979, and you know, when the last ABBA tour was, and you know, and then, you know, he's suddenly sort of fawning at her feet, introducing her as this legend and everything after having panned When You Really Love Someone. But I Should Have Followed You Home on here is an absolute mesmerisingly stunning track, and it's stunning because it's really sad, actually. This is the thing about Agneta. She's, you know, she is so sad. And yeah, you know, you've got these two lovers that are meeting after a very long time. You know, you know, they could have been lovers, as it were. You know, maybe met 20 years ago or something at a bar or something like that, and, you know, hit it off, but then didn't follow it up. And you've kind of got this same kind of thing happening here, because, you know, yes, you would like the two of them to get together, and it sounds like they probably might, until you get to the end. The absolute stinger line is the one that Agneta delivers to him, which is, maybe, if you want to, we'll talk for a while. And you know, it's still nebulous, it's still up in the air. You know, there's still this maybe, and if you want to, and that what you actually really want them to do is say, right, well, look, you know, open your diary and we'll meet next weekend, kind of thing. You know, and make it, you know, this firm, solid thing, which it sounds like it's going to be until we get to that line. And yeah, you know, it's really quite sad. What other good tracks are on here? There was another single on here, which is "Dance Your Pain Away," which, again, you know, it could be Dancing Queen. You know, it is so reminiscent of ABBA that you know, they've done really well to, you know, to kind of, like, as I say, to respect the fact that she was a member of ABBA without you know, just cloning the style. And I do apologise for my phone going off in the background there. Somebody wants to talk to me. So yeah, get that album. It's a very kind of sacchariney sweet album, but as I say, there's this tinge of sadness throughout the whole thing, which just sort of it just sort of bitters the pill slightly. So that, you know, you don't just sort of think, you know, this is just a wishy-washy, you know, kind of, you know, crap factor album. You know, it's really good. So yes, right. Smoke and Mirrors by Brett Dennen. This is probably my most recent album that I've bought. I love Brett Dennen. He's another Ed Sheeran-esque style folk singer, this time from America. And yeah, while Ed Sheeran's album is very British in its outlook, you know, you almost feel like, you know, again, you've got this sort of, you know, pull between, you know, the kind of Winchester style sort of countryside, you know, from like the folk style, where you feel like you're sort of rambling in the fields, and you've got the R&B dub style sort of stuff that's also going on there, which sort of brings you into the middle of London. Here on Smoke and Mirrors, you know, you right from the cover, you're sort of taken into the outback here. Right, the only criticism I actually have of this album, actually, really, is to do with the cover, because you can't read a bloody word of it. You know, it's just, you know, especially if you're old like me and your eyesight's failing even with your specs on. All right, but yeah, this is beautiful, and, you know, although it looks like it's going to sound like a John Denver album, it actually doesn't. You know, there are some real anthemic sort of rocky kind of songs on here, like Wild Child, for example. You know, which, you know, you'll only need to hear it once, and, you know, you'll be singing it away as if you've known it forever. You know, it's you know, as I was talking about in my video that I made earlier this year on songwriting, you know, this is actually really made for your sort of Sunday, or your sort of weekday 7 a.m. audience, should I say. You know, most tracks on here feel really familiar just with a very few listens, but yeah, it's you know, again, it's lifted up by its lyrics, really, you know, and you know, if you're talking about the 7 a.m. weekday woman kind of thing that just wants the news, the weather, and maybe a good song, and doesn't want all the other rubbish that she has to listen to on the radio, then this is that album. Ed Sheeran's isn't, you know. Ed Sheeran's is your 10 p.m. glass of wine kind of album. So yeah, complete opposite there. But yeah, my favourite track on here is actually called "Don't Mess with Karma," which is you know, extremely good. I suppose the idea of this sort of country theme is that when you go into the countryside and stuff like that, that you know, like the American canyons and things that you can see on here, you know, and I felt this myself when I went to New Mexico many years ago. But you know, you suddenly feel like you're getting in touch with yourself, and this whole album is, yeah, it's trying to commune with your inner being, even though the actual musical style of it is very much sort of, you know, very poppy and very familiar. You know, there is this element of innerness, and that is the tension that is being drawn out on this album. And it's actually nice that it's been conceived as an album, because the next album that I'm going to talk about, actually, although it's beautiful and I absolutely adore it, it really hasn't been conceived as an album. It's a hodgepodge. Now, I don't normally like the X Factor. I absolutely loathe the X Factor, and I think I would have to be chained to an armchair and sort of be tortured whilst watching it, you know, to ever have to sit down and watch an episode of it. But I saw at a music festival a few years ago, I saw Joe McElderry, and he actually was really entertaining, and he's got a really good singing voice, and from then on, really, I was absolutely totally hooked. He has kind of distanced himself a little bit from the whole X Factor sort of sound machiney sort of thing, and in a sense, he's kind of self-destroyed that aspect of his career, and you know, then he went on to yet another blinking reality kind of showy sort of thing, which was from rock star to opera star or something like that it was called. But basically he won that because he's actually a damn good singer, and he kind of, you know, was able to appreciate the differences between classical singing and pop singing. And even though he has released a few classical style albums, I hate to call it classical music because it actually isn't. It's, you know, it's sort of in a sense sort of being popped up, as it were, to appeal to the masses, you know, to you know, grannies in crimpline blouses and stuff like that. But yeah, he also releases pop albums, and I have to say it is his pop albums that I actually like. This album wasn't released in 2013, it's a 2012 thing, but you can buy it for about £3.50 on eBay. This is Here's What I Believe. This album, although it is saccharine sweet and, you know, the total antithesis of someone like Ed Sheeran or Brett Dennen, it's absolutely gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. Yes, you have got loads and loads of sort of choirs and strings on there and everything, but what he doesn't do, like sort of most X Factor winners and stuff, what he doesn't do is bawl his head off. And there is something very, very restrained about his singing technique and his singing style. So you feel all the emotion that he's singing about, but less is more. And it's very telling, really, because one of the things that I feel that is really crass about the X Factor is that it is to do as little work as possible and make as much money as possible. And something, you know, and that kind of really shows itself here, because there's a song on here called Skyscraper. Now, Skyscraper won the 2013 X Factor. It's the single that was released by the winner, Samantha Bailey. And in itself, it was a cover version. A lady called Demi Lovato or Lotovo or something like that. I can't quite remember her name, but I'm sure if you in fact, I know that if you YouTube Skyscraper, then you will find her video of it. And then Joe McElderry covered it, and then this bird from the X Factor won it with that song. Okay, so really, you know, they haven't even bothered to give the woman a new song to sing as her single. You know, so it's going to be, you know, it's going to make Simon Cowell a lot of money for really not doing very much and just rehashing the same old stuff. Skyscraper is a lovely song. It's a bit like David Guetta's Titanium in its sort of lyrical theme of essentially, you know, I've had my heart broken, but I'm a skyscraper. I'm gonna, you know, I will come back and be strong and tough and that sort of thing. Now, the three kind of styles, Demi Lovato, her original style of it is a very emotional presentation. It's so emotional, in fact, that it's overdone. It really is overdone, you know. And if you're watching the video and you know, listening to it at the same time, you just think, oh my God, can somebody please pass this woman a clean pair of knickers, because she just wet them, you know, because she's just so sort of, it's so over bloated and overdone. Sam Bailey's, she's just resorted to screaming at the end, just bawling her head off at the end, and you know, I'm making myself very unpopular here, but it really is awful. It really is awful. Joe McElderry's is my favourite, and it's understated. He does not bawl his head off. Where Sam Bailey gets to her screamy bits towards the end, all Joe McElderry does is pop into his falsetto voice. And with a male, when you pop into a falsetto voice, now when I say falsetto, what I mean is this sort of head voice, which is a bit like that sort of thing, but when it's sung, it's crying. It is actually, it's the musical equivalent of somebody crying. And, you know, there is the tension within the song. The tension within the song is that, yes, I'm going to sort of come back from the ashes of this broken relationship, and I'm going to be stronger and I'm going to be tough, but actually I'm hurting. You know, it's actually really painful, and that what I'm putting on here is a front, as it were. Joe McElderry just dips into his falsetto. He's got such a rich, thick voice. I get the feeling that it's in a key that's just slightly too low for him to sing, so that in the verses he's very breathy. Okay, so he's not sort of trying to sort of act the words out in a sense of, you know, a bad soap opera actor, that, you know, you just think, well, actually, you know, this again is just so hackneyed and overdone. He's just singing it in his normal voice, trying to be self-assured, trying to be confident, but because it's slightly too low for him, he's very breathy and very it's an absolute masterpiece, the way he performs this song. And, you know, again, YouTube it, okay? Other standout tracks on here, I'm sorry I've gone on about that one too long, but it needs to be said. The title track, Here's What I Believe, he actually co-wrote with a load of other people, and I have a feeling it was the lyrics. But again, you know, this is about, you know, some lover that he's decided is two-timing him, and therefore, you know, he would rather that this bloke, you know, just went off and, you know, just left him alone, really, because he wants somebody that's, you know, full-time and just for him kind of thing. So there's your lyrical theme of the title track. And again, this falsetto voice just comes in, you know, sort of halfway through the verses. The vocals there are indistinct slightly, So you can't tell exactly what it is he's singing. I'd have to Google the lyrics or something to find it out. But again, it's because he's close to breaking up. Okay, he's close to breaking up. He feels like he's been had by this person, and it's it's making him break up, and it's beautiful. It's so gorgeous. Just listen to it. The other songs on here are sort of cover versions of things. I think probably one of the monumental cover versions on here is actually Something's Gotten Hold of My Heart, which was a Gene Pitney song in the 60s. It's just amazing what he's done with that. Also, there's a Freddie Mercury song on here called Love of My Life, which is very, very good indeed. Obviously, Skyscraper, which is a brilliant song. And yeah, it's £3, people. You've got nothing to lose. You need to play it twice to feel how good it is. It's very saccharine sweet. I wish it wasn't all ballads. I wish that he'd taken a little bit of time to think, well, actually, we've just had 2 ballads. Let's have a more up-tempo number. But people don't do that these days. People can conceive their albums as downloady things where people might just pick and choose the odd song here and the odd song there, and so the art of producing an album as such seems to be going by the wayside. So yeah, but having said that, played from start to finish, it's still a good album. Love you, Joe McElderry. I'm going to see him next year in June. He's coming to where I live, so love it. A million miles away from Joe McElderry, and the last album that I'm going to talk about is Yoko Ono. This is called Take Me to the Land of Hell. It is absolutely brilliant. This woman is 80. Is she older than 80? She's 10 years older than John Lennon. John Lennon would have been, what was he? Born in 1940. So John Lennon would be something like 63, 73 now he would be. So Yoko Ono is like 83 or something, and she is still producing relevant material. This stuff, again, it's not commercial dance music. I don't like over commercialized dance music. This is music of the street. This is New York, clubland kind of, undergroundy music, and it's just you just can't believe that she's still doing it. It uses kind of different devices from Joe McElderry. Joe McElderry's backings and instrumental backings are full-blown orchestral choral things as well, which fill your lounge with with music, whereas on most of these songs you've got a handful of instruments, maybe just a drum kit, a bass guitar, a rhythm guitar and a lead guitar and a couple of synthesizers, and with that they actually make so much noise. They fill the instrumental space. Okay, so it's full of these really thick textures, even from sort of guitars that are sort of scrunched up and distorted and effects to death, so that in the sense of what the Beatles were doing with Sgt. Pepper, where they were just trying to do anything to disguise the sound of things, to make them sort of mashed up and whatever. And you've got the same technique here, but just with a very few of them, and they again fill your space. Standout tracks on here, track 2, which is called Cheshire Cat Cry. We, the people of the United States, take this dream to be... God, I should have remembered it. I'm not very good at recalling lyrics straight off the top of my head, but here we go. To be self-destructive. Sorry, we, the people of the United States, take this dream to be self-destructive. How damning is that of, you know, American sort of foreign policy and, you know, home policy as well, you know, and you know, this is just a superb album. That song Cheshire Cat Cry is so danceable. It's not loudness ward. It's loud, but it's not loudness ward. And again, because you've got, you know, essentially two instruments filling the space. You know, the introduction is essentially a bass guitar on a drum kit, and it's so groovy and so danceable that, you know, you just can't stop moving when you hear it. It you know, and it gets you inside here, which is what music is supposed to do, you know. And what other decent songs are there on here? Sorry, I'm getting sort of over emotional. Well, not really. New York Noodle Town, or NY Noodle Town. Again, you know, it's similar kind of, you know, sparse backgrounds. It's got one of the best guitar solos known to man on it. Really, that's another video idea I've got, because I really want to find out what people's favourite instrumental solos are on songs. But this one is, you know, it sort of comes very, very close, not quite as good as, but very, very close to the guitar solo on Weed Money Man by Brett Dillon. But yeah, that's brilliant. There's a ballad on here called There's No Goodbyes Between Us, which, you know, people will assume is written about John Lennon. I don't know whether it is or not, but the instrumental backing would seem to suggest it was. You've got a mellotron on there sort of playing the sort of do-do-do-do-do-do kind of Strawberry Fieldsy kind of sort of accompaniment to go with it. So you might assume it was. It's kind of a look back to the 60s. And Take Me to the Land of Hell is a beautiful piano ballad. And what this album does is, you know, people, you know, I kind of see a lot of sadness. I'm not a pessimistic person. I'm quite an optimistic person, but I see a lot of sadness. And sadness is beautiful. And when it's turned into an art form, you know, sadness is hell as well. But when it's also kind of, you know, placed on this art pedestal, as it were, it does become very, very beautiful, and it resonates with me, and, you know, probably with you as well, just at the very deepest places. And Yoko Ono she's just an absolute master of just sort of grasping what's in your soul and shaking it up and really making you feel it. So yeah, half a dozen albums there that, for different reasons, I suppose, I just find, you know, just absolutely gorgeous. Okay, even if you find one album there that you think, oh, perhaps I didn't think I'd like that one, and then you play it and you find you like it, then my work will be done. Okay, I will speak to you soon. Sorry that's been 35 minutes, but there you go. It wouldn't be a Pearcie video without it being ageously long. Hope you have a lovely Christmas. Wish you all the best for 2014. It can't be any worse than 2013. Let's just be optimistic and try and have a happy time. Okay, bye.